welcome back to my channel. If you are new here and like the video, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button for more content. Thank you for watching. Hello everybody, I would like to start off by saying that this is supposed to be a one-shot, but I got a little bit carried away when writing this, so now it is going to be split into two parts. This is being the first, and the second part will be out by tomorrow, hopefully, so not to worry. This also touches some difficult and dark topics, so be sure to watch this so you can get the trigger warnings. That being said, the trigger warnings are addiction and alcohol abuse, physical and mental abuse, as well as manipulation. So if any of these are touchy subjects, please skip this video. But I am quite proud of this, and despite the trigger warnings, this is hurt comfort, so I hope you guys like it as much as I did. Before anyone knew it, time flew by faster than anyone would have liked. It started with the third years leaving the team to venture off into the world and make their mark, and suddenly the twins were facing their final year in high school. Their final season ended much sooner than they had hoped thanks to OsaSuna, but Atsuma had no worries, knowing that he was going to play again next season for MSBY. Osamu, on the other hand, well, he felt lost. All he ever knew was his brother and volleyball, and with his twin brother gone, he hadn't come to accept being alone. Even still, he'd shut out those closest to him. "Where are you going?" Osamu glared at his raven friend, slamming his book down on the counter. "I don't think that is any of your business." He spat, reaching for the door of their shared apartment, groaning when the teller grabbed his wrist. "Can you just leave me the fuck alone?" Suna stepped back, his eyes wide with shock hearing Osamu curse at him. It had never happened before, especially with such bitter edge. "I can't do that. You've been acting off for a while now. I'm worried, and so isn't Atsumu." "Well, he isn't here now. And neither am I. So fuck off." He opened the door before it was slammed back shut by Suna. "Where are you going to go?" Osamu bit his tongue, racking his brain at what had caused this outrage, but couldn't find a reason to back down. "I don't know." Suna sighed, running his hand through his raven locks. "At least tell me how long you'll be gone." He cracked a smile, trying to lighten the mood. After all, this was their shared apartment. It's not really sharing if one leaves. "Indefinitely." The answer wiped his smile away, just as quick as the words left the former Speker's mouth. He nodded his head, not in understanding, but rather disbelief. "Fine. See your way out. Come back when you don't have a stick up your ass and we'll talk." Suna opened the front door, keeping his eyes fixated on the silver-haired boy, waiting for his next move. With a huff of air, the latter stormed out, slightly flinching at the sound of the door being slammed right behind him. He messed up. Fuck. At that point, Osamu was new at being an adult and threw everything away because of a petty argument. He threw away his home, his friendship with Suna, and even his strong bond with Atsumu. Now, nearly 5 years later, he found himself at the same place that he swore he'd never go to as a kid. "Can I get another one?" Osamu slouched in his seat, holding up his shot glass in the air, slightly swaying at the action. "I do apologize, but advise not having another if you are going to be going home yourself. Why didn't you call for someone to pick you up?" Osamu bit his lip, feeling his eyes sting, already knowing he was an emotional drunk. "I have no one." The bartender paused before nodding in understanding, offering to call for a cab but was shot down almost immediately. Osamu never wanted to go back to that cursed place that was his home. The place, once filled with love, is now only filled with terror and pain. The bartender couldn't deny the sight of the bright red mark making the younger boy's cheek swell. The older man sighed before pouring liquid into another clean shot glass. Fine. This is the last one though. You can stay as long as you like to sober up, but no more drinks unless it's water. Osamu lightly smiled, remembering the same caring actions his old team captain Kita would show. Thank you. He downed it in less than a second, laying his head down again, mainly to attempt to hide the mark on his face because it would lead to questions, and those questions were something he wasn't up to facing. He was too tipsy to hide the fact of where it really came from, and he couldn't lose it all again. He groaned, pressing his forehead against the counter, only looking up when he heard a sound. He saw the same bartender placing a tall glass of ice water. He was partially relieved since his throat was dry. Thanks. Anytime. He grabbed a straw and placed it inside the water, taking small sips. When he felt a tap on his shoulder, he turned around and felt his heart freeze over. After Osamu left, Suna was left at their apartment alone. He waited, never once hearing a word from him. After a year, he had no choice but to find a new place, given that huge space was too much for him to afford alone. He wasn't certain about it right after high school, but with the younger twins' disappearance, he felt this urge to turn back time, to when they played volleyball together. He joined college volleyball to fill that empty void he felt in hopes that his name would become the biggest name known, big enough that Osamu could hear that name and come back to him. Many more years had passed, and while he hadn't reached the point of success that he'd like, he still kept on fighting. He was in a new town, visiting for something related to his work in volleyball. He honestly still didn't get it, but the trip was refreshing. Make sure to check out that bar. Me and Omi went there, and it was probably the best one yet. He remembered what he had said, and even though he wasn't much of a drinker, this was exactly what a trip was for, a fresh breath of air and change. So what was a few drinks? At least this time he was of age. Last time he consumed alcohol was when he was a foolish teenager. He sighed, swinging the door open, already welcome with a brawl? Osamu felt like a hand had grabbed a hold of his heart and squeezed until there was nothing left but ash. Haruki, darling, what are you doing here? He forced a smile, surprised to see his boyfriend here when he came here to get away from him. The stinging reminder on his cheek told him so. Haruki huffed, grabbing Osamu's sleeve, forcing him up from his chair, and stumbled to the ground from all the alcohol he consumed, making his entire body sway. Sir, please let go of him. He might... But his warnings reached his smaller boy too late when Osamu hurled at the sudden movement, sullying his shoes. He looked in disgust before glaring at Osamu, who was wiping his chin. You disgusting filth! He yelled out, swinging his back leg, connecting it with Osamu's jaw. He fell back, already tasting the metal in his mouth. The boy stayed on the ground, not knowing what else to do. His nausea kept him from moving anywhere, and the blows to his face was a distinct reminder of what he made his life become. It wasn't always like this. When he first met Haruki, when Osamu was at his lowest from leaving Suna, they fell in love quickly and treasured each other. It was only after the second year, everything changed. It was when Haruki became manipulative, finding ways to make the other have sex with him when he wasn't physically or mentally capable of doing so. He always thought he just became too difficult. It was also the first time he ever struck him. Maybe he needed to be put in his place. That way he could just be reminded that his life is as shitty as it is because of his own actions. Maybe if he hadn't gotten so sensitive, he wouldn't have driven Atsumu or Suna away. Maybe if he had been capable of ever being loved, Haruki would have still had that tender gaze directed at him and not one of such malice intent. He coughed up bile, feeling his lover's foot crash into his side. He felt hands grabbing at him and glanced to see that the smaller boy was being restrained.
Amu!
It might also help if he hadn't chose a bar to drown his thoughts out.
Osam!
Just what type of person was he turning into?
Osamu!
He opened his eyes, realizing that voice was calling out to him. Maybe it was just the bartender. After all, he did just get kicked into the next dimension. Or maybe he's going to kick him out for causing a scene or throwing up all over his floors. Osamu! That voice. Hey, I know you from somewhere. He laughed in his drunken stupor. Oh, for fuck's sake, Samu. He grabbed a napkin, wiping a mixture of leftover puke and blood from his face. Is this really where I meet you after all these years? He mumbled silently, startled to see someone approach him. Is he a relative of yours? Oh no, just a really old friend. What of that man? The bartender was quick to lift the table that was on its side and get a broom and dustpan to clean up the broken glass, not necessarily ecstatic to get to the vomit first. I take it you don't know him. Well, no. It's been a few years since I've seen Samu, so I'm not sure if they are acquainted in any way. The older man sighed, setting the cleaning supplies aside, taking a rolled up stash of money from his pocket and handed it to Suna. Look, this kid has been coming by a lot, and each time with a new injury. Suna bit his lip, glancing down at the boy in his arms who was fast asleep. As much as I do enjoy the company and extra money, he isn't okay. Take this and get a cab. Take him with you, preferably away from here and from the troubles this boy has faced alone. Suna accepted the cash, raising his eyebrow. Wait, how do you know I can be trusted? Didn't the last person he was with just treat him like a punching bag? The bartender smiled warmly, fetching a mop bucket. Well, I assumed your name is Suna. It fits the description, although I could be wrong. The middle blocker's jaw dropped. Description? And how do you know my name? The kid talks a lot when he's drunk, and he really didn't leave a single detail out. You must be important to him. Suna flushed into a bright red, silently yelling at the dumbass who left him. If he was so important to him, why did he leave? He shook that thought, wanting to go ahead and leave, getting his long-lost friend away from here. Also, he's a regular here and has been for quite some time. I hope it's a long time before we meet again. The younger smiled, throwing Osamu over his shoulder, letting his body weight press against his back, and exited the building. Thank you. After the long and silent car ride, Suna paid for the cab driver and thanked him before entering his hotel, plopping the heavy boy from his back onto the couch. He was out cold, not even the apocalypse could wake him, which the Raven found amusing considering he always remembered him as a light sleeper. After addressing his wounds, he found himself exhausted even though he hadn't done much that day, just filed some paperwork and attend a few conference calls regarding his work. So getting ready for bed, he couldn't help but stare at his old friend. His own dark roots had grown out with the tip silver, like he had attempted to maintain his color, yet whatever caused him to become a regular at a bar was at cause for his poor, unkept hygiene. Getting closer, he noticed a foul odor emitting from him. Gee, Samu, where have you been all this time? He brushed his hands through his matted hair before lightly skimming his bandaged injuries. And what happened? The next morning was met with one of the worst hangovers Osumu's ever experienced in his life. He felt sore all over. It hurt to even blink. In fact, one of his eyes wouldn't fully open due to swelling, his head racked in pain with the sun shining through the windows, acting like someone took a sledgehammer to his skull. His nausea was like no other. He groaned, rolling over to cover his head, but ended up rolling off of the couch. Fuck. Even though he fell, he hadn't bothered getting up. In all truth, he wanted to rot where he laid. Samu? His deep blue eyes sprung open, hearing a voice in his home. For a moment he thought Haruki had gotten home early, but he soon realized that he wasn't even at home. He was in someone else's home. That meant someone had taken him from the bar and took him to their home. Had he been kidnapped? Samu? Calm down, it's okay. He blinked, finding a clear image of his dear friend from high school. Suna? The raven nodded his head, still trying to shake the sleep from his eyes that was interrupted hearing the latter's panic outburst. Where am I? Wait, shit, what happened? He stumbled onto his feet, tripping over the blanket that he had been laid on him the night prior, now getting tangled in his feet. Okay, calm down. Nothing bad happened. Wait, how are you here? He was quick to interrupt him, pointing a sharp finger at him with his face twisted in confusion. You were gone, and then... I'm too sober for this shit. Suna frowned at the remark, but didn't say anything more, not wanting to chase him off again. Besides, this is what he was here for, to help him. Hold on, I'll explain everything. Just don't overexert yourself or you'll open your wounds. My wounds? At least the aching and throbbing feeling began to make more sense. How much did you drink exactly? I mean, I was drinking before I went, so I'm not sure. Suna sighed, already grabbing the first aid kit to change his bandages, realizing that helping Osamu was going to be a lot harder than he thought. Okay, answer me this then. Osamu lightly flinched away, seeing his old friend close, grabbing at the old bandages to reinspect his injuries. His features softened, reassuring the former specker that he was safe. Who was that boy that hurt you? Osamu tilted his head, trying to rack his brain to figure out who the latter may be referring to, but it just occurred to Suna that he probably didn't remember. He had blonde hair, and I want to say green eyes, but I could be mistaken. Haruki. Haruki was there? His voice rose in fear. Never once had he wanted his old life and new one to clash together. Suna was never supposed to know who Haruki was, and vice versa. Hell, Suna wasn't supposed to see him. Samu, please tell me who he is. I want to help. There was no point in hiding it anymore. He couldn't stop the unavoidable. He's my boyfriend. Okay, that hurt. His crush was not single like the last time they saw each other. But something wasn't right. When he saw the couple together, Haruki was beating him. Are you... He had to pick his next words carefully. Is he... abusing you? For a slight moment, sadness etched into his eyes, but was quickly replaced with the same blank stare. No. Osamu, don't lie to me. I saw it happen. Then why bother asking? Because I want to hear it coming from you. He sighed, placing a new bandage on his jaw before gently tracing his sunken cheekbones with a delicate touch, like the broken boy in front of him could wither away at one wrong move. Are you? It was silent for a long moment before he heard a quiet sob coming from the latter. Yes. In only a swift second, OsaSuna was pulled into the latter's arms, already hushing him, running his fingers through his hair. Well, attempted to, since he had yet to have a shower. It was only one other time prior to this that he saw the boy break down, and that was years ago when the OsaSuna had gotten into an accident and his twin paranoia got the best of him. While he does admit the touch he craved was finally being fulfilled, he never wished it under these circumstances. Not when he was hurting and practically on his knees begging for help, and so very broken. OsaSuna was broken, and he was going to do his best to help him. Alright, there's the first part of A Second Chance, and let me just say, there's going to be so much drama in the next part, like, holy shit. So do get ready for that. There's also violence and all of the other same trigger warnings in the next part as well, and that's when we'll actually get to the comfort part of Hurt Comfort, so yeah. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you'd like to be kept up to date, check out any of my social medias. I hope that you all have a wonderful day or evening.